Okay, let's get started. Thank you for being here, everyone. I'm Kaylin Jordan with Hunter Benefits, and over the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about something a lot of advisors dance around, which is ERISA. Specifically, why growing businesses tend to outgrow their SEP and simple plans, and what actually changes when they move into a 401k that's governed by ERISA. So a quick clarification, 401k plans are generally governed by ERISA and simple IRAs and SEPs are generally not ERISA plans, which is why the governance and disclosure framework feels a little different. But despite everything that I just said, we're here for clarity and not complexity. So let's just jump in. Before we dive in, I want to do a quick temperature check with everyone and get an idea of how confident you feel talking about ERISA with clients. So if you could just jump into the chat and give us a rating between a one, a two, and a three. So three would be like, I feel great talking to clients about ERISA, and a one is like, ugh, I want to have my phone handy so I could Google things really quickly. Okay, let's see. Three, Robin, I would hope so. Two, okay. All right, my goal is to get those numbers up before the end of our time together. So here's what we will be covering today. How ERISA governed 401ks compared to SEP and Simples in real savings potential. We're talking contribution limits, catch-up rules, and Roth flexibility. How plan design can reward key employees and drive retention. And then tax credits that make a 401k more affordable than most people expect. Um, how to spot when a client has outgrown the plan that they have. And then on the right-hand side of the slide, why it matters to you, credibility, bigger client conversations, a competitive edge, and better outcomes for the clients you're working with. So the goal is simple. We want you to walk away with sharper instincts for when a 401k is the right next conversation. So SEP and simple IRAs exist for a real reason. They're easy to start, they're easy to maintain, and for a lot of early stage businesses, they get the job done. But they're also intentionally limited. A 401k that is governed by ERISA is engineered for more, maximum savings, flexibility, and how contributions are structured, and real employer control. That difference doesn't always show up in year one or two. It shows up over time, and usually right when the business is doing well and their plan starts to feel like a ceiling instead of a tool. And we'll talk about that ceiling in a few slides. So when people hear ERISA, the first reaction is usually, ugh, more rules. Unless you work at Hunter Benefits, and then your reaction is, yay, more rules, because we love rules. Um, But the way to reframe that is, what ERISA really adds is structure and it adds accountability. And three things specifically. So fiduciary standards, planned fiduciaries are legally required to act solely in participants' best interest, and that is a higher bar than a SEP or a simple. Required disclosures, participants receive, fee disclosures, summary plan descriptions, and investment notices. And that builds trust and it builds transparency. And then the Form 5500, which is an annual federal filing that creates a clear compliance record. When it's maintained correctly, it protects the plan sponsor from liability. The guardrails aren't just for employees, they're also for the employer too. So this is where the difference really becomes tangible. There are two limits that often get conflated, and it's worth separating them. So what an employee can contribute from their paycheck and what total can go in, which includes employee deferrals, combined with employer match and profit sharing. A simple IRA allows employees to make salary deferrals up to an annual limit, and the employer is required to contribute either through a matching or a fixed non-elective contribution. A SEP IRA is funded only by the employer, Employees do not make salary deferrals. Employer contributions are discretionary and are made as a percentage of compensation. So you can see here that a 401k lets you layer those sources together. And that's how you get that 72,000 in combined contributions or 80 with catch up. And SEP and simple plans don't give you nearly as many levers. So catch-up contributions really matter in the back half of a career when people are positioned to accelerate savings and, closing the gap is the priority. So here's how the three plans stack up. SEP IRA gives you zero catch-ups. You got nothing. Simple IRA, $4,000 for age 50 and older. And then it's 5250 for that 60 to 63 super catch-up window. And then in a 401k, it's $8,000 for age 50 and up. And that super catch-up window is 11,250. And that age, that 60 to 63 super catch-up window came in with Secure 2.0, and it can change the math significantly. So it's really worth noting that, if you have starting in 2026, if a participant with a prior FICA year wage is over 150,000, they generally must make catch-up contributions as Roth in a 401k or a 403b or a 457b plan. So that is something to flag for your high earners. And for a business owner trying to max out before retirement, this difference alone can add up to six figures over a decade. So, a pattern that we see with business owners all the time is, their income grows, the business is doing well, and suddenly the plan that once felt generous really starts to feel limiting. With a SEP IRA, employer contributions are capped at 25% of income. So, if you want to hit that $72,000 limit, you would need $288,000 in income. But an owner who's making 100K, they can only put in $25,000. So with a 401k, employee salary deferrals are dollar based. They are not tied to a percentage. So that same owner who's earning $100,000, they can still max out their deferral. A 401k, it's the great equalizer. It works across a wide range of income levels, whether the business is just starting or it's already, up and thriving. So this is where employers really feel the difference and where you as an advisor can open up a much bigger conversation. 401ks give employers four things that SEP and Simple simply don't offer. One is discretionary contributions, so that's profit sharing that can flex year to year based on what the business can support. There's no fixed obligation. New comparability design, you can allocate higher contributions to key employees. And a SEP and a simple, they can't do that. Vesting schedules, employer contributions that are tied to tenure, that creates a real financial reason to stay, and that's a retention tool. And then there's no employee cap. A simple maxes out at 100 employees, a 401k that can scale with you indefinitely. And a part-time eligibility under Secure 2.0 means more of the workforce of a business can participate, which means higher participation overall and employees who are more invested in the company's success. So at this stage, the retirement plan, it stops being just a benefit and it really becomes a business tool. So I'd love you all to think about, your clients and where they're headed in their careers. And I'm sure all of you are probably working with at least some people that are in their 50s or their early 60s who are finally in peak earning years and they want to compress as much savings as possible before retirement. So for those clients, a SEP is a dead end. There's no catch up at all. A simple, it gets you part way there, but with lower limits and a Roth feature that only works if the employer has elected it and the provider supports it. That's a variable that you don't want your clients depending on. A 401k with Roth deferrals, it's standard and it's reliable. So when a client wants to mix pre-tax and Roth to manage their tax exposure in retirement, the 401k is the only plan where that conversation is straightforward every single time. So I would love to know from all of you how many SEP and simple plans you're currently managing. So if you want to like just pop into the chat and either give a number in total of how many you're managing or how many of each you're managing, we'd be really interested. Okay. So far, consistent numbers. Two for Jim. Okay. Okay. Um, As I see these come in, I really want to encourage everybody to ask themselves a question, which is your client's current plan actually built for what they want to accomplish in the next 10 years? So while you're thinking about that, this is a features slide, but I don't want to just narrate it at you. So let me tell you which ones of these I've seen substantively change a conversation with a client. Um, for compliance-minded people, Safe Harbor and the ERISA fiduciary shield are your selling point. The compliance structure that feels like a burden, you can tell clients it's actually protecting them. For employee retention, auto enrollment and participant loans are things employees actually notice. A SEP or a simple, it is invisible to employees. A 401k is not invisible to employees. So for high earners, don't skip cash balance pairing. That's the one that makes people really lean in, and stacking a cash balance plan on top of a 401k can unlock massive additional tax deductions, sometimes six figures. And we will be diving into an in-depth look at cash balance plans on another future webinar. So the employee deduction is similar across a 401k and a SEP. Both are up to 72k per employee. But if look at where the difference really shows up. Roth, 401k, and Simple, they both allow it. A SEP does not. For catch up, a 401k leads at 8,000. Simple, like we said, offers 4,000, and a SEP offers nothing. And then, cash balance pairing again. And the startup credits also, all three plans types, they qualify for up to $5,000 per year for 3 years. So that cost objection that we often hear from clients, it applies equally across all of these plans. The question is, which plan gives you the most in return for that investment? And for a smaller growing business, the net cost of starting a 401k after the credits, it can be significantly lower than people expect. So it is really worth surfacing with the clients who hesitate on cost. You know, I always ask, why set up a plan that you'll need to change later? So simple IRAs, they're popular because they're easy to start, but some of the rules that seem minor upfront, they can really create friction as a business grows. Three things that I want to flag. So the 2-year rule, participants face a 25% early withdrawal penalty. That is more than double the standard 10%. It's really a wall around their money, and most clients don't know that it's there. Um, no concurrent plans. While a simple IRA is active, you can't run any other qualified plan alongside it, has zero flexibility. And then exit time. So for Secure 2.0, it allows a simple IRA to be terminated mid-year only if it's replaced with a safe harbor 401k. And in practice, we see this all the time. It requires to do that conversion, careful timing, and advance notices. So we encourage you to start planning early. Um, there are now smoother paths from a simple to a 401k, but they do not happen overnight. So if you have a client who's growing fast, start the conversation earlier rather than later. So if you take a step back, the 401k advantage really comes down to four things: more savings, more flexibility, more control, and it is built for growth. When a business outgrows a SEP or a simple, and we know most growing businesses do, The 401k is the better fit tool. The right plan at the right moment can mean hundreds of thousands more in retirement outcomes. And if a client is still in a SEP or a simple, they're leaving something on the table and usually multiple somethings. Okay. So after all of that, I would love to do another check and see if you all feel just as confident as before, if you feel a little more confident after our presentation. Okay. Okay. Robin's just as confident as ever, so that's great to know. Um, let's open it up to questions. And also, I would like to propose a question to all of you, which is what topics do you want to see us cover in a future webinar? We would love your input. We want to make these useful for you and helpful, and something that, you walk away from feeling like you got some good information. So we're really open to any suggestions. Don't all jump in at once or anything. No questions. We were that good. That's what I'm taking this as. This was so good. There's like zero questions.
You did a good job, Kaylin. You covered all the pieces and the comparisons.
Yeah,
And we're
great.
here to help anytime that there's any questions, even after this.
Mm, okay. Um, well, we have other webinars coming up. This is a rough guesstimate of what oh yeah, the cash balance one will be good. We're excited about that one. Um, yeah, and I think Zach could probably throw a survey that we have in the chat too, if anyone's interested in filling that out and giving us some feedback on your own time. Um, yeah, the cash balance plan will be with the cash balance king. That's what we call. That's what I have deemed Christopher as. Um, and he is pretty excited about that title. So I know he's really jazzed to like dig into cash balance plans with everybody. We'll stay on for a couple of minutes for if anybody decides that they have questions, but if you don't have any questions and you feel like you got your fill out of this, like you can hop out if you want, but we're happy to stay until the top of the hour and chat through questions on this or anything else, honestly, because Robin is an expert in everything, so I offer up her advice on everything.
Definitely not an expert, but have experience.
There you go. I like to oversell, Robin. I can't believe nobody has a question. I'm surprised.
I'll ask a question.
Hit me with it,
All
Margaret.
right. So I guess I always anticipate getting a lot of pushback from people when I'm having these conversations with them, just because then I feel like I prepare myself a little bit better. So could you talk through how you would handle like so I've owned my business for 25 years. I still have a long time to go before I actually want to retire and I'm thinking about passing this business down. I have about 10, 15 employees. I've got a simple IRA. Should I be considering? What should I be doing?
What age is your client?
I am putting a bunch of clients together in one magical person.
Okay,
So I am 40.
40.
Yep.
I will give what I my opinion, but I'd love for Robin to also weigh in. I would say, if they've had that plan already started up, so like the startup credits aren't going to be as relevant as a part of your argument, right? So we can take that off the table for a minute. What I would say is I would broaden it out and ask them, what do you want to have accomplished by the time you're retired? What's your goal? What do you want to be able to do in retirement? And then from taking those answers, I would work backwards and say, okay, well, you're going to have more flexibility in a 401k because of these X reasons. And then I think also for a business owner with those 10 to 15 employees, thinking about retention, I think you can hit the retention angle, which is I bet your employees really don't like feel like there's a lot of as many benefits to their retirement plan, right? As there is if they were in a 401k. Like we said, like the SEP and the simple are kind of invisible to employees. So I think there's also the angle of kind of hyping up the employee benefit and how that can help manage retention. Robin, anything you want to add?
Well, with you're limited in your employer contributions in the simple, and you don't, everything that you give to the employees, it's 100% vested for them because it's going to their account. So they lose the ability to have any vesting on it. So they have their safe harbor, possibly a match or a non-elective, but they've also got profit sharing that they can put in. And there's different ways that we can allocate that based on integrated and new comparability formula, depending upon what works best for them. And as the years that could possibly change too, and the plan can be changed as their demographics change too with their employees. You don't have any of that with the simple.
Yeah. I think if you think about like the levers analogy really like sunk in for me. So I just think that maybe there's only like one level for a SEP and like a handful for a simple, but then when you go to the 401k, you just have options. And so why would your client not want to have options and, not be locked into something that's so restrictive?
Loans,
Loans,
hardships.
yeah, the hardship loan too, if you're talking about like employee benefits. I think especially now where like the job market and the economy is a little tenuous, having that benefit that you can tell your employees if something happens, you have the ability to dip into your 401k with a hardship loan. I know people who have, done that. So it's yeah, it's definitely something but that again goes to a business owner, a plan sponsor, really talking to their employees. And that's one of those ways where we've talked about this, you and I, Margaret, where you can bridge the gap, like you offer to come and talk to their employees and bridge that knowledge gap so that they understand like what the benefits actually are with the plan.
Great
Okay,
question. Thank you.
thanks. Anybody else? Or any other topics you'd like to see us cover? You can come off. Mike, you can come on, Mike, if you want to share, or just throw them in the chat. Did I go through that really fast? No. All right, cool.
No,
Can't see my clock from over here. Um, okay. Well, yeah, like I said, we'll stay on to the top of the hour, but yeah, any questions you all have? Thanks, Margaret. Bo, are you staying on because you have a lot of questions?
No questions on my end.
All right.
I
Well,
think
if
you
you
covered
think of
everything I was hoping for, so
Okay, cool. And we're
I
gonna
think that
send the
was great.
slides out and we'll send like a comparability chart out too to y'all in our follow-up email. But thanks for coming.